The other major theme of the 16th century is Mannerism, where celebrity artists like Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Raphael are doing work that's still world famous today. Their work is also often considered kind of predictable, or it follows certain rules. Mannerist artists are less famous today, but they break many of the existing rules, and they start to experiment with new ways of making art. In particular, the Mannerist artists try to take Renaissance aesthetics and accentuate parts. So what that means is parts are often exaggerated, they're overly large or overly small. And they start to play around with the proportion of the body. We also start to see a movement into more unique poses. So where Renaissance artists typically use a triangle or a pyramid as the governing shape of their composition, the Mannerists start to use more unusual poses, and in some cases even poses that are impossible for the human body to be moved into. We also see that they start to use the picture plane and the space of the painting in a different way. So while the art of the Renaissance, typically the focus is in the center, it's balanced. With Mannerist art, the focus is often on the outside edges of the canvas, and the weight and the balance is askew. It's pushed to the outside edges, or it's disrupted in some way. One example of this kind of Mannerist art is Pontormo's Descent from the Cross. And if we look here, this painting is called A Descent from the Cross, but it's so chaotic it's hard for us to tell what's happening. There's a sliver of sky in the background and a sliver of earth at the base, and that's really all. Similarly, we see that when we look for the focal point in the center of the painting, there's really nothing in the center of this painting. There's a void there that's filled just with the blue cloth of people's robes and this large number of reaching hands. Likewise, when we look at the proportions of the body, these figures are stretched out or elongated, so these figures that are holding up the body of Jesus. And their positions are unique, for sure. So the figure that holds the lower half of Jesus' body is bent over and crouched down, but at the same time up on the tips of his toes. Likewise, the figure that holds Jesus' upper body and upper torso has one foot crossed over the other, and again is perched lightly on his toes, almost like a dancer, rather than somebody who's doing a difficult and grueling physical task. Another example of this kind of mannerism is Parmigianino's Madonna of the Long Neck. Parmigianino references a late medieval hymn here that speaks of the beauty of the Virgin Mary, but he exaggerates the features that are often considered beautiful in women of the time. So we see her long neck, which he compares to the white columns in the background, her long, elegant fingers that are white, pristine, showing that she doesn't have to do physical labor, especially in water, like laundry or dishes. And her body is elongated or stretched out. Likewise, the body of the Christ child that she holds on her lap, the body is stretched and elongated, and it makes him very unusual looking. The head is that of an infant, but the body looks like that of a much older child due to the elongation of mannerism. When we look at the composition in this painting, we can see that similar lack of balance. On the left-hand side of the painting, we see groups of angels that crowd around Mary and the Christ child and are tightly packed together. Where on the right-hand side of the painting, we have vast, empty, open space that's filled with almost nothing. Similarly, we have a figure in the bottom right corner, likely Saint Jerome, but it's unclear if he's a full-size figure simply in the distance, or is he a small statue or model of St. Jerome that's at a much closer range? All of those things are unclear to us, and this lack of balance, these awkward poses, and this lack of clarity are overall marked to this more experimental style that gains popularity in the second half of the 16th century.